This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Mashed potato.
It's potpourri style on a Friday, a feast. Nordo in for PA, whether it's the baseball team, we got some Belmont conversation in the mix, middle hour. Johnny K, John Krasinski of The Athletic, after what we saw last night in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Halliburton and the Pacers beating the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hockey in the mix, Game 2, NHL Stanley Cup Final is this evening. We'll chat about that. But, of course, our favorite, we are your radio home for the Minnesota Vikings. KFAN, 651 Carpets Plus Studios. And joining me now, as he does most Fridays, Chad Greenway. Thanks to Grey Duck. How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing well. How much of the initials game with the coach did you catch?
I caught zero seconds of it, but I walk up to the studio, and it's just chaos outside. And they're like, who is here? And it's the beautiful coach. It's the quarterback. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to be around him, touch him. Here he is.
Now, you've been around the station and the fan for many, many years.
Yes.
You know how we do things around here. When we have you, we have to exploit you.
Absolute exploitation out there.
So you see what's going on out there. Hey, can we get a couple of liners for you? He's out there, and he's loose.
Yeah.
he's out there doing everything right now.
Yeah, it was like a little King Leopold out there, just getting everything you can out of him.
Who do you think? Whether you played the initials game before? I mean, that was a guy determined.
How do you do?
I think he got one.
Okay.
I think he got off the schneid. He was worried about getting shut out. It was his second game. I think he just got cooked the first time.
Yeah, I've played 4 or 5 times. I don't think I've ever got more than one ever, which is awful. I mean, you play in your car and everybody's like, I play in my car all the time. It's easy. Yeah. All right. Come on here in the studio. Get everybody breathing down your neck. You get Meat Sauce's antics.
Yeah.
He's a distraction. Yeah. Marnie's intensity, which is at like a 13 at all times.
She's very excitable. She's never in a bad mood.
I sat beside her last time, and I didn't even know what to do. She was in rhythm. But I'm glad KFC got one. It's good to get that one. You feel so good. Like he feels like $1 million right now.
No, he's walking away. I mean, what he had planned for mandatory minicamp, the script's going to change. Things just got a little bit easier.
We're going to the swimming pool today. Public swimming pool. We're going to ride the slides. Rip up the practice script.
Day off to take the 25-year-olds over to Valley Fair. Let's hit the water park.
100%.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Valley Fair water park.
How was the golf tourney for you on Wednesday? Are you of the traditional high-end athlete that's just absolutely great at everything?
Well, I'm glad you opened it up that way. I used to play quite a bit of golf and got decent. Yeah. If you're looking at the index, that was like a 11.2.
Oh, not
which
bad.
was fine.
That's very good.
For what I played very little. And then I
let it go a little bit.
I don't play anymore.
Oh.
I play 3 or 4 times a year, and it's at events. So I grip and rip. I mean, I could care absolute less. Like all of you guys out there listening, the aiming fluid makes me better, not worse, but there is a tipping point. There's a bridge too far there.
Yeah, it's the law of diminishing returns, right?
Yep.
First couple hit you the right way, then you find your groove.
Yeah, they say more than 2 Grey Ducks a hole is too much.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. But no, it was a good time. It was great to see so many old heads from the Vikes, man. I mean, so many guys that came back. Riley Reef, they pulled him out of the middle of South Dakota somewhere, like in the deer stand. It's not even deer hunting season, but I mean, he's
still living in a silver bullet somewhere, right? He's got the Airstream hooked up to.
Absolutely incredible vibe. I saw a lot of guys there, and that's fun to see. Fun to see all the Vikings brass there. I don't get over to TCO very often, so it's fun to see everybody.
Well, and that's where I was going with it. We did the show on Wednesday, saw you there, and it was an absolute blast. And then it was kind of shotgun start style. Everyone left, and
where you go?
It was just me in the cartoon.
Yeah. How'd that go for you?
It's a blast.
How big is Dante Culpepper?
Well, so
that is a man.
He is massive.
I played against him, never played with him. I came in after, and I thanked him for my first ever interception off of him, which was sweet when we played the Raiders back in the day. That'd have been like 7 maybe.
Yeah.
And you don't realize, I've never met him actually like in person outside of football pads. And man, that's a big human being. Unbelievable.
I saw him back in college. So my level of rubidity, whether From the time I was a kid, it's evolved into something else. Where I will admit, I'm not starstruck when I see you.
Yeah, I'm literally the most average person of all time.
I know you well enough now where it's I'll always respect the hell out of what you did in the game, and I absolutely look up to you. But in the same sense, it's not. Can I get an autograph?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get a sample pack. That's all I'm trying. That's all I'm trying to get these days.
I keep forgetting.
But with Dante. Back when I was a Rube, and I'm working at, and I told this earlier this week because we had him on, but I got to shake his hand. He was looking for some video games. Training camp would have been 2005 down in Mankato, and got to see him at Best Buy. And I'm bouncing around. I got blue shirt, yellow tag, the whole bit, and it was. I'll admit, I had a little bit of stalker to me. I was kind of following him around. I had a walkie. I
just want to make sure if you need any help, you were there for him.
Absolutely. I was coordinating with other employees.
The weird part is you didn't even work there.
Yes.
Yeah, you just came. You
happened to have a blue polo. Yeah,
that got awkward.
I was
when they escorted you out.
I was asked to leave. Yeah. Read and yeah. So, but getting to see him was it was a cool moment where it's not. I'm not necessarily shocked to see current or former Vikings
100%.
anymore. It's super cool. Again, tons of respect. But when I got to see him, it reminded me.
It takes you back
when in those moments, in those memories where I lived on every snap, man. When I lived
100%.
on every moment with my favorite team.
And also, I think because he probably treated you with, shook your hand, said thank you, great dude. Like
Super
that
nice,
matters a lot.
dude.
So I'm always mindful of that when you meet somebody for the first time who watched you or grew up watching you or whatever. You want to make a good impression regardless. So, because obviously if you had a different interaction with Pep way back when in 2005, you probably have a different mentality of him now.
Yeah. No, the humility that he shows and how do you get past, he looks like an O-lineman. And I'm not saying that I would say he's gained a couple of post-career LBs, but
like a blocking tight end.
Okay.
Potentially a left guard if you have a big off season of eating.
I just think correct. When he's on one of those 6,000 calorie diets for a couple of months.
I think the way he's just one of those dudes that was just born. He's just a big human. Whatever, he's not. I wouldn't call him necessarily super heavy overweight, but he's just a big dude, big boned.
And it kind of brought me down the road because there was news earlier this week. Tough news for the local cat, Frank Ragnow, retiring.
Yep.
And so, Frank, this is not a situation. You dealt with it from an injury standpoint earlier in your career, but I'm kind of connecting Ragnow and Dante because that 2004 season that Dante has, if not for Peyton, this has been talked about countless times. If not for Peyton Manning's 48 or 50 TDs, whatever he had, Dante's the NFL MVP in 2004. And then, of course, injury strikes later on in 2005, and his career was never the same. And you think about Frank Ragnow, who I don't believe is even 30 yet. He's 29, maybe we'll say. He's not leaving the league because his best days are behind him per se. He's leaving the league because this Iron Man that he's been working as hard as he can to put himself back together for his guys and for the sake of winning games for probably multiple years now. And he, in his belief, he just can't physically do that anymore. And you think about the way Dante's career was changed. It's kind of, heartbreaking in a way. And with the career that you had, you know how much not only that you care, but the guys around you care, to have it taken away from them in that respect.
Yeah, I think, when you play at that level, your best ability is availability, to be able to be available, be consistent, be the player they pay you to be. And do it year after year after year and start stringing years together. And I can remember thinking year 4, year 5, and I had a bunch of healthy years after my first year I lost. It's okay, I got to continue to improve in different ways and find ways to improve. That's where you self-scout. But Frank's been in that, when you're in that mode of you get an injury and then it builds and then you have a setback and then you have another injury and you have this mentality of, when can I get just a free and clear year of 17 straight games of playing healthy football, come out the other side and just have another offseason to train and get better rather than always focusing on the setback.
Yeah.
And health is everything. And the majority of guys, I shouldn't say the majority of guys leave the NFL because they're not good enough.
Right.
The next majority, the guys that just can't get healthy and play through. And that's just the reality. The only thing that's guaranteed in football in general in the NFL is injury. And, how lucky can you get to avoid? I mean, you start thinking about the positions your body has put in over the course of 11-year career, in my case, and how many injuries I somehow avoided, millimeters or inches away from potentially catastrophe. And that's just me. It's everybody's like that. And then there's guys that aren't as lucky. Yeah. There's guys that get something in their early in their career that they can't ever get over, and they continue to cause other problems. So,
and it's tough as a fan, right? I mean, you've seen it where you get frustrated. Come on, man, just stay on the freaking field, right? Well, but from what, like you said, bad luck, wrong place, wrong time, a lot of stuff happening on the field, dudes cut out of stone flying around. It ain't that guy's fault.
Man, there's live bullets out there. I mean, there's people flying around in all sorts of piles and angles and weird stuff at the body. So to be able to survive that and come out of a game, sometimes you look at the film back, you're like, how am I walking after this? But the human body's amazing in a lot of cases. And even for him to make it as long as he had battling through those injuries is impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have to take it to another somber route. The passing of Jim Marshall was reported earlier this week.
Celebration of life, man. What an incredible dude.
So you got the chance to interact with him. Yeah. I'm always curious, the fraternity, it seems is interesting. The OGs, so to speak, are always hoping that they get recognized by the young cats. Yep. And you've probably been on a practice field where, an older retired player comes up and, hey, have you ever thought about doing this?
Yeah,
You know that you're in a spot that they used to shine. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, they still just kind of once in a while want to be remembered and be a part of it. But Jim Marshall, I don't think he had to try too hard, given the career, given the the streaks and just the consistency and the brilliance with which this guy played, how much he meant to the organization. But you did get a chance to chat with him and maybe get to know him a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Vikings do a great job of bringing guys, alumni around. And of course, the Purple People Eaters, they were around a lot, and we saw them at almost every alumni event, come to almost every open practice there was available, and you get a chance to meet, interact, thank them for spearheading and leading this organization for so long and being sort of the icons of this organization. And then you feel like it's your job to kind of carry the torch and pass the torch to somebody else. And you look back and it's like, now I'm that guy. I'm 8 years out. I am those guys now, and the mark and impression that era left on this organization. I mean, you could say it's clearly the most infamous, famous era of Vikings football with all the Super Bowls and the quality of play. I mean, some incredible players. And in his own right, I mean, one of the best to ever don the Viking purple. And I mean, the Iron Man of the NFL, the streak he played. I mean, I don't think people quite understand. I mean, yes, there's like the Cal Ripken streak, which is incredible. But this streak of active games played in the NFL, never missed a game, is utterly incredible. And doesn't get talked about enough on a national stage. We all know about it and talk about it here locally, but what he was able to accomplish was incredible.
And the Vikings have always been exceptionally supportive of alumni, as you say. But was it true to the idea that, as you were talking about it, like some people, they just kind of left an aura in the building. Where as a member of the Viking, I mean, was it even to the degree maybe where it's like, I kind of want to live up to what some of these guys, I mean, think about like Stud and his work with the team and some of the great linebackers that this franchise has had over the time. It's like, here I am, 52.
Yeah.
I got to handle my business the way that a Studwell would have, or maybe some that came before you.
Yeah, Studwell in particular, because he was there. He's in player personnel. We see him you see him every day. You see his biceps are somehow still massive even at this age. It's just ridiculous. But a guy like literally an icon. I remember he was the main scout on me in college, so he was always down in Iowa City, and he'd come to a lot of practices, and I didn't really know the history and who he was, and I learned real quickly from our coaches down there about his excellence and his tenure here and the stats. I mean, to think that I played for 11 and had almost 1,400 tackles and still be like 500 tackles behind Studwell is just like ridiculous. And the guy was just incredible. And again, another guy who never got the national attention because you don't go win 2 or 3 Super Bowls and have the career you have, but nonetheless has left an indelible mark because of not only his play, but then how he stays here and becomes part of the player personnel and is a huge part of what we've been in the Vikings organization for the last 40 years.
That's Chad Greenway. I'm Nordo in for PA. It is a Friday feast. The Timber Tech set list does include as follows. More with Greenway around the corner, some Vikings and NFL related talkers. Rodgers emerged from the mist to let everybody know that he's going to play for the Steelers. Ted Schwerzler on the Twins. Twins take 3 out of 4. Absolutely waxed yesterday in the finale against the A's, but they will come home for the Blue Jays this weekend. Injury news on Pablo. Some baseball conversation at 9:45. Dick Girardi joining as the 157th edition of the Belmont takes place tomorrow. We're going to chat horsies and maybe some angles with Girardi at 10. Kevin Fallness in the NHL and the Minnesota Wild at 10:20. And the Potpourri-style Friday feast will end with John Krasinski. Just after 11 o'clock, Johnny K is going to join Game 1 of the NBA Finals last night, plus some Wolves-related talkers as well. So that's the TimberTech set list brought to you by TimberTech.com. More with Greenway around the corner. Brett Blakemore produces. I'm Nordo. This is The Fan.
The Fan. Don't miss out on the classic musical Grease at Chanhassen Dinner Theater. Experience the nostalgia of high school in the 50s with this musical based on the iconic film. Head over to a contest page for your chance to win a pair of tickets, including dinner for 2. KFAN.com, keyword contest. Enter today.
Welcome back, Nordo in for PA. A feast on a Friday. Vocal maintenance season as it is. He will be back on Monday. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to another segment with Chad Greenway at Chad Greenway 52 via X, brought to you by Grey Duck. You think Rodgers is kind of annoyed, Chad? Because
the Vikings wouldn't answer the call.
Well,
is that what he's annoyed about?
Phone ringing off the hook, but Rodgers has kind of played this string out as long as he possibly could, and it sounds like in advance of mandatory minicamp, he finally announces he intends to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Schefter and Rappaport and Pelissero and everybody, they've had that in their drafts for a month and a half, and now they get to fire send on that thing.
Yep.
But then Trump and Elon get loose yesterday. All I wanted was my own day to announce that I'm signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and suddenly the President of the United States and the world's richest man,
the big beautiful Bill,
absolutely just unload on each other all day. I mean, a breakup for the ages. It's very sad. I think they could get back together. We'll see.
Yeah.
But Rodgers finally signing with the Steelers. We've all been waiting with bated breath. And now it's finally done, and we can move on and beat them overseas like we did last year.
Yeah, I was going to actually lead with the apple fritter. I just smashed it during break.
How good was that, by the way?
Who brought those in? We should give them a shout out because that thing was incredible.
Yeah, it's that's one of the perks. I mean,
Good
they're many. Hours ain't bad in the radio business, but that table, there's a reason that table's there.
That table is naughty over there.
A lot of stuff has found its way to that table over the course of time.
The Rodgers news obviously isn't surprising because we all knew it was kind of coming down to a few organizations who are going to pull the trigger. The thing that's disappointing to me is that this is going to work out for him.
I think
it just is. I mean, it's an organization and with the head coach and leadership there that they know what they're doing and they'll handle it appropriately, in my opinion. Again, the Steelers has been, obviously, they've all the winning seasons in a row. They haven't had the best run here recently, and it's been because, obviously, Big Ben is left, and they're trying to figure out who is going to replace him. But that organization wins, and wins at a high level when you get great quarterback play. And I just think that's a dangerous mix. If they can get him motivated in the locker room the right way, again, who knows how it's going to play out? It could be a complete S show, but the reality is, it's interesting. And is that the one in London or is that the one in Dublin?
Well, that's a great question. I think it is. Well, let's verify.
Have you heard how hard it is to get these tickets, by the way, these games?
It's got to be impossible.
That Dublin game would be tight.
Well, that's the thing. We went as a station in 2022, and
do you remember it?
Went to London.
How many warm beers did you have outside the pub, just standing in the streets?
Well, I'll say this:
the best. What a great culture!
Are you kidding me? With the and even the ales, the English ales that are technically served near room temperature,
they're wonderful.
They're absolutely fantastic.
Somehow it's like one of those things. Like the Guinness is the best.
Pittsburgh's Dublin.
That's going to be a good one.
See, that's the thing, though, is London, super, super cool. But London does have, like any massive city, right? It was New York City with smaller buildings. And it was kind of cool. Every pub, every restaurant, every place you'd go is basically older than our country. So that was interesting. And, the White Lily and the Golden Rose, the name and everything like that. I had my fair share of $5 ales. But there was some sort of train strike at the time, like the tube and stuff. So I couldn't get out and go see anything cool. And London, again, it's fine. London ain't my thing. I want to go see castles.
Yep. Countryside castles.
Correct. I want to see historic landmarks and stuff that is, half a millennium old.
Yes.
That's what I was
Cemeteries are sweet. I would say when we went to London and played overseas,
cemeteries.
Whatever years that was. Yeah, you want to see the age of gravestones and cemeteries. Does that not interest you?
Well, actually, the way you put it, I mean, just flippantly, cemeteries.
Not for that reason, because I'm some sort of morbid creep. But the reality is like when you go and see a stone that somebody passed away in like 1400, I'm like, that's something I've never seen before.
Exactly.
That's cool.
So totally in on that.
But we stayed, or the first part of the trip when we went there, I forget what year it was, 2011 or 2013 maybe, I can't remember.
13 against the Steelers.
Steelers. Yeah. So we go there and we're staying kind of out in the countryside, the first, out in Watford, the first half of the trip. And we got to go out from there and kind of spend some time out in the country, had some great meals out in the country. You walk into these, like we had Phil Lodeholt and the whole crew with us, and you watch Phil Lodeholt walk into this building that was built in like 800. And like
wasn't built
when everybody was, like 4'8".
Yeah.
And then Phil walks in, like just ducking everywhere, like the chairs are small. It was absolutely wonderful. And
how uncomfortable was he?
Yeah, like you're eating and like there's like these Dutch doors with the, the tops open and like there's like sheep and horses just eating out in the pasture. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And food was the food.
Food's the food.
But the beer was great.
That's actually...
You just drink most of your calories over there.
The best play, I mean, unless,
And you won.
And you won.
Yeah.
The Vikings are undefeated overseas.
Oh, I didn't know that. I guess that makes sense, yeah.
So they got, they have a precedent that has been set and a record to live up to with this back-to-back in Dublin and then London. But the food over there is awful. The food is brutally bad. And so the best restaurants, from my standpoint in London, were, you go to a great Chinese place, you go to these other restaurants. Yeah. So I wasn't into bangers and mash as much
malt
as
vinegar everywhere just to cover up the stench of the food.
But if a little shepherd's pie, if I find myself,
listen,
it's mashed potatoes and it's meat and it's great.
There's not one ingredient there that I don't like.
No, correct.
Including peas.
So Dublin is castles. Dublin is a little bit more.
Little fun fact I'm going to drop on you. St. Patrick's Athletic FC is one of the oldest Irish soccer football clubs.
Are they in Dublin?
Clubs in Dublin.
Really? Isn't there a connection?
Your boy might be part owner of that club. We got an opportunity here, me and Berkey, a couple years ago to jump in on something over there. It's pretty exciting. They played the United a couple years back over here, right here in the Twin Cities.
Is that a summertime friendly?
I still have not. It is a summertime friendly. Still have not been to a game in Dublin and sat in the owner's box.
Ooh.
And that just sounds like something that a kid from South Dakota shouldn't be saying. But yeah, that's what I want to do.
So Ryan Reynolds, is this just a trend?
Ryan and I, we text and talk more than people know.
He owns, is it Wrexham?
Wrexham, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
right.
Wrexham.
Yep.
So you guys...
He's in English. Yeah, we're Irish.
Okay.
Yep.
Would maybe you find out what their 25-26 schedule is?
Already on it. Yeah, I mean, it's the time to go.
Well, it's a Saturday affair for St. Patrick's.
Can you imagine?
Sunday Vikings Steelers would be the weekend of the ages, but you're saying
probably
tickets are impossible.
Maybe
right
leave
now.
the wives at home. Maybe on that trip.
That's probably a smart
probably
play.
a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe have a Guinness.
Yeah,
maybe.
or 12.
Yeah, maybe some Irish whiskey. I guess they're known for that.
I've just heard.
Hit the links.
Yeah. This sounds like a nice little trip we're putting together.
That is pretty nice, actually. I got to.
No barbecue over there. How are you going to live for a couple days?
That's a shame. Yeah. We'll meet the locals. And we'll teach them a thing or two.
Love it.
Here's I'll bring the spice, and they take care of the meat, whatever it shall be, and we'll make memories. I was talking about this yesterday. So Zimmer's defenses, you remember those?
Oh yeah,
they were pretty good, right? Mm-hmm. It always felt, and you can tell
statistically, I wouldn't know, but I mean, it felt like we were pretty good.
You can tell me if I'm wrong here, but it always felt like.
Where's Charch when you need him for stats and stuff?
Yeah, Charch. Well, we're talking defense though. Charch is somewhere.
Doesn't score points. Yeah.
Charch lives in a city that requires you to be a gun owner.
Yeah.
Imagine how that's going to go.
Oh, that's great. I would love to be there in that conversation.
What a transformation, by the way. I mean, he's sitting on the back of Old Red.
I don't think a slingshot works either, Charch. You can try, though.
Oh, we love Charch and we miss Charch. There's no doubt about it. But in the Zimmer days, it always felt, as good as your defenses were, one thing that always would become problematic, specifically late in the season, is the snap counts on your defensive front.
Yeah.
And, Linval, I mean, as good as he was, there wasn't necessarily that secondary option. And you had guys from time to time, the Ifadio Denabos, more recently, I'm thinking of like a DJ Wanham, Tom Johnson. How about Tom Johnson's
stud.
run? I mean, that's frankly, and he's no Kevin Williams. That's the last time we had consistent pass rush from the middle.
Yeah.
It was really Kevin Williams.
Yeah, it'd be Kevin, and obviously
Tom Johnson, rather.
Kevin, then they moved Tom Johnson inside, or he'd stay inside. He's a 3 technique mostly, and he would play from that athletic position on rush downs. And then we went through a phase there of moving Everson inside to play 3 technique and kind of got to have it passing downs.
Yeah.
And he could kind of hold up against the run because he's strong enough, and he could pass rush with defensive ends outside of him. So that was always a good tactic too. He made that famous when we beat New Orleans in the playoffs. Ev had a great game, and that was because they made that change.
Yeah, but the depth, the ability, because now they're coming in waves, right?
Yep.
You're looking at Philly's front. You're looking at the best defensive fronts.
Philly gave us everybody the blueprint, right? When you watch that playoff run they went on, and you see fresh pass rushers from all over the place in the fourth quarter. Everybody looks at the roster like, we could probably use a couple more.
Well, Milton Williams just made $100 million playing about 45% of the snaps.
Love it. God bless him.
So Harrison Phillips, and I like Harrison a lot, but his best statistical season that we were raving about a couple of years ago, as good as it was, as impactful as it was, he was playing 75% of the snaps.
Yep.
And so one thing that's really excited me about this offseason, and Andrew Kramer of the Strib actually wrote about this a day or two ago, and I was talking with Gessling about it yesterday, but that's been my thing really for the last few years, is it's really worrisome when we start, taking too much tread off those tires, and how do we remain fresh? How do we be like Philly? And I know they're coming off injuries. I know they're a little longer in the tooth. But that's kind of one of the things that in its OTAs, you can't really see this stuff in motion yet. But the excitement that I have about a Jonathan Allen, the excitement that I have about Javon Hargrave is potentially having a wave.
Yep.
And that's what kind of pumps me up specifically about this defense moving forward.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the salary that have been dished out now for these guys that have played partial snaps but made a massive impact, now it proves to these guys that, listen, you don't have to play 85 to 90% of snaps to go make a good buck. Yeah. Like, you can play your role and you can maybe play less snaps, but go make a massive impact. And when you got to have it because you're fresh, because you go to Jared Allen or you go to Kevin Williams and say, hey, you can play 50% of the snaps. It's like, nope, that ain't happening, because you're not taking, these guys aren't coming off the field. And if you do that to some of these guys now, they're going to push back. Like, no, I want to make an impact. I'm fresh. I can do it. But they don't realize that at 50%, with all the beating they take and what's now been put out by some of these other organizations, to say, hey, this works because we keep these guys fresh, and the name of the game is all about pass rush.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, you can still go out and make a bunch of money doing it too. You can kind of get your head around that.
So I say, what would you like about playing in Flores' defense, specifically in your spot? I
think, I played in the Tampa 2 system for 8 years. And before Zimmer came in, and it was very vanilla. You're going to bend but not break. You're going to sit back. You're going to look at the quarterback. They're going to dump it off to the running back or the tight end. You're going to come up and tackle them, and you're going to kind of bend, get off the field and go play. Had some great years. And I think one of the things about those years was because we had an elite run defense. We forced people into spots where we could make the play. Then Zimmer comes in, and you get this experience of playing multiple positions and making changes at the line of scrimmage, and being, going from a blitzer to a cover guy across the field on the tight end. All of a sudden, there's one motion. Now you're the blitzer, and the end is crashing. It's like all this kind of chaos, but it was fun and competitive, and it challenged you mentally, physically, the whole thing. Forced you kind of become a new player. I see what Zimmer did, and now what Flores does is it allows these defenders to not just say, here's what you do, be good at it, and if there's anything else I'm going to ask you to do, we don't have a spot for you. The versatility at which these guys are coming in, their athleticism is impactful, because now you're going to put a guy rush the quarterback. You're going to put a guy who's going to be in coverage. You're going to put a guy who's going to work with the defensive end on a game to get some pressure on the quarterback. So the versatility would be so fun. You go from covering deep third to covering in the middle to blitzing within 3 snaps. Ooh. And that's fun for a defender.
Last couple for you here. Chad Greenway, courtesy of Grey Duck. Speaking of Harrison Phillips, he was talking to the media a few days ago, and he kind of mentioned that J.J. McCarthy has kind of already, kind of worked his way into the idea. He's stepping up to be a leader, kind of paraphrase. And I'm just curious, is that a real thing where a kid at his age still hasn't taken an in-game snap? I will still always, and leadership in the locker room, you and I have actually talked about this before. I mean, how that looks can be very different from locker room to locker room. But, looking forward to seeing him on the field, rooting for this kid, and I'm loving great things for him and this team moving forward. So it's not about indicting JJ in any way, nothing negative. But the idea that 22-year-old kid rolls in, certainly highly touted draft pick, so there's some cachet that goes around with it. But is he getting on the soapbox and rallying people at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain positions that get a little bit of a free pass when it comes to, we're going to listen to what you're saying from a leadership position because you're in front of the huddle. Linebacker certainly one, safety is one, quarterback is one.
Yeah.
And you might get a little bit of a longer leash in these moments, but until you go play on Sunday and roll the game out and go through the ups and downs and take your lumps and go make some plays and show some toughness and show some courage and show all the things that we want from the locker room they'll say the right things to us, but they're not going to fully believe it until they go out there and quote unquote go to war with him and see how he responds. And I think that's what he's waiting for, is that experience with the good, with the bad, to say, hey, I'm with it. I'm in it with you right now. Let me show leadership and let me show how I respond to failure. Let me show how I respond to success. And then he becomes a leader, truly the leader, where, okay, he's a quarterback. Yes, he's young, but he's in this unique position to be a young leader. But he's going to try to gain that because of the position he plays now. He has to be vocal. He has to be talkative. He has to be encouraging. He has to hold guys accountable to run routes. And he has to be the guy that knows it better than them. And that's where you hope you gain this year off, his redshirt year, to say, hey, you have to know this thing better than everybody and be an extension of the coaching staff as a young person. And that'll help him gain that leadership role quicker.
So not that it's all simple and it's differs again in case to case, but it could be something, I got to see him take an absolute blindside smack from an undefended rusher of some sort. And I got to see him jump up, off the turf and handle it. I got to see him complete the impossible third down of some sort. And it's just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, even from a fan base, right? Even us as fans who live and breathe with this team.
I need this season.
We all want to see that. Yeah. We want to see him make a mistake, come back from that mistake, and go make a play. Go make a great throw, but then be the guy on the sidelines that's encouraging the defense, whatever it is, right? And go be a winner and go be a leader and be authentic and not be a fraud. I mean, those are the things that everybody's looking for right now.
Yeah.
And he can't prove it until the season starts. So he can't be in a hurry. He can't skip a step. He's just got to be patient and wait and go through these OTAs. And this offseason is massive for him right now, just for timing and confidence. And that way you come to the training camp and the pads come on, all this stuff gets real. And then you go make decisions when the bullets are flying and you live with it. But that decision-making stuff's going to happen now, and it's going to build and build and build. And when we roll them out on game day, week one, it's going to be a lot of excitement. It'll be a lot of eyes on our organization, obviously regionally, but nationally on what we've been waiting for.
It's going to be awesome. Mandatory minicamp next week, then OTAs. A little bit of a chill.
Yep.
Back to it, man. You're the best. Thanks for hanging out, dude.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
That's Chad Greenway at Chad Greenway 52 via X, brought to you by Grey Duck. It's a potpourri Friday feast as we transition to the Twins with Ted Schwerzler next, right here on the Fan.
Farm Aid 40 is coming to Minneapolis. You can join Willie Nelson, Neil Young, Dave Matthews, and more Saturday, September 20th at Huntington Bank Stadium. Celebrate 40 years of music, food, and family farming. Tickets on sale now. Full details, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Nordo in for PA on the Fran. Happy Friday. And joining me now, covering the Minnesota Twins, just took 3 of 4 out Oakland way / Sacramento with the A's, and now they're heading home to face the Blue Jays. Joining me now, Ted Schwerzler. You can follow him at TL Schwerz, SCHWERZ on the X machine. How you doing, Ted?
Good. How are you, Nordo?
I'm doing well. Real quick, what's a good website for people to check in on your work?
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing awesome stuff at MinnesotaSportsFan.com. So all of our Twins and Minnesota content is there.
So I want to start with kind of the news over the last couple of days. Pablo Lopez, just wanting more from him in 2025, ERA north of 4. And, it looked like he was kind of catching his stride and off to a pretty good start this season, but suffers the same injury that Joe Ryan had a year ago. And, I guess earlier in the season, maybe there's a silver lining there, but out 8 to 12, not throwing for a month. What do we think about Pablo and how this ultimately will impact the club?
Yeah, I mean, obviously losing a guy that looked like that top of the rotation starter that you wanted him to be is not a good thing. He's had some blips this year, but yeah, the ERA is a career best. He's looked awesome. And yeah, we saw Joe Ryan miss, I think, 2-3 months last year, basically the end of the season from August.
Yeah.
If you can backdate the timeline at all and hope that, okay, now Pablo is maybe back sometime mid to late August, that puts the Twins in a spot where maybe they don't have that late season collapse and they get a big arm post-trade deadline and can kind of rely on that. But it's going to take a decent amount of treading water until then, and obviously David Festa is going to have to be a lot better than he was in his return to the rotation yesterday.
Yeah, and that's, that was my next question, not earth-shattering by any means, but it is kind of who picks up the slack. I mean, I look at like I've seen some of the work Paddock is doing right now, and he's seems like he's hanging by a thread. He's getting the outs, kind of teeters on disaster at times, doesn't strike out a ton of guys. You mentioned Festa. You got Zebby getting his first win a couple days ago. Who is going to pick up the slack from your standpoint, at least maybe in the short term based on what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that the Twins really leaned into the pitching depth that they came into the year with. There was thought that Chris Paddock could have been kind of parted out to just give them that $7 million and allow them to use that elsewhere. He's pitched well enough to continue keeping that rotation spot and has been great of late, but now it's going to be on the youth. I mean, Zebby came back and didn't look great his first, I believe it was inning or whatever, and then threw 6 shutout in that start. But yeah, now David Festa and Zebby Matthews are here, and they're going to be given those turns for at least the next month. Beyond there, you have, Simeon Woods Richardson and then Andrew Morris yet to make his big league debut. But all of those guys are different levels of safe floor, kind of high ceiling, uncertain, unproven. And with a lineup that hasn't hit, it's been so much pitching, and now you have 2 spots in the rotation every turn that you really just need to make sure that they come out and give you that good stuff.
With in the bullpen momentarily with Duran and Varland, those are some dogs right there. But the bullpen feels like it might be missing some of the sharpness in totality. What do you think? Yeah,
I mean, the bullpen as a whole has definitely had good numbers, but there's that underbelly that the Alcala and Funderburk of late that leave plenty to be desired. Danny Coulomb coming back probably Tuesday, I would guess, after their off day on Monday would be a huge boost. He's been great. And really, he said his only injury was really fatigue, being, a mid-30s reliever that's kind of been around the block. But if they can keep that bottom of the bottom of the bullpen to be an Alcala or a Funderburk that just kind of shuttles through, the back end of that bullpen is one of the best in baseball. I mean, Duran just came off winning reliever of the month. Griffin Jax has looked amazing, even with the early season blip, and then Varland too. The big thing that the Twins are now going to have to focus on is that Varland and Jax have been, and Duran too, I think to a certain extent, have been used so consistently. Varland's close to the top of the majors in usage rate. If that's going to continue to rise with guys like Festa and Zebby and even Chris Paddock or whoever giving short starts, I mean, by the time you get to August, what do you have left? And the Twins, as much as they do have that pitching depth, I think the bullpen is a little bit more of a concern as to who comes up next.
Now, you mentioned Varland in particular, and, the usage and all of that. He did have starting experience, not that it was terrific, earlier in his career, and has specifically, it looks like, moved to a relief option. Is he somebody, and I mean, it's in season, so there's some difficulties there, but the idea of if they're not able to bridge some sort of gap without Pablo, would Louis be a guy that potentially gets a rotation spot or an opportunity, whether maybe it's long relief, if you mentioned a short start by Zebby, et cetera, or potentially putting him in a spot where, yeah, we love you in the pen, but we actually need you here on the front end?
I think they tried to wait through spring training and slow play that pretty heavily because they weren't sure what they were going to have from a starting depth standpoint, and they wanted him in the bullpen. His stuff has obviously looked great out there, but wanted to make sure that they had the starting innings covered. At this point, I don't think he goes back to the rotation during the season, or realistically even in the off season, because you can cover that, through free agency or whatnot else. But the starting options, so a pitching prospect to watch. I mean, he's not the level that Zebby or David Festa coming up, but he's thrown good numbers. AAA and AAA is knocking on the door ready. And then move official Travis Adams is coming up to the big leagues and will pitch out of the bullpen. Starter his entire professional career. This year they've had him piggybacking starts at AAA. So he's a guy too that, he's going to pitch out of the bullpen, but he's used to throwing 5-6 innings, and he could work in a swingman role too if they want to go that route.
Time for a couple of more. Ted Schwerzler at TL Schwerz via the X Machine and MinnesotaSportsFan.com. You can cover his work and the work they're doing to follow the baseball team. Yesterday aside, is there some stride found in this A's series? Buxton's running right. Roy's finding some life at the plate. And just kind of moving forward here as the offense is kind of, that out of the gates and injuries and all that, kind of trying to find their stride. Can you find that when you beat on the Athletics for a little roadie?
Yeah, it was a good, I guess, get right spot. I mean, that park is the easiest park or the highest park factor in Major League Baseball right now. So that's kind of an infusion for the lineup. And if Royce can parlay some of those hard hits into a little bit more offense, it is good to see Buxton back out there and continuing. I mean, he's been incredibly healthy all year. Obviously, the collision causing a concussion doesn't help with that, but the fact that his legs and his body and everything else is held up, if the lineup can come home, and the series against Toronto is always a fun one. Canada travels well. And there's always a ton of Blue Jays fans. If they can continue that offensive stride here over the weekend, I think they got to feel like they're in a pretty good spot.
With and really everybody's chasing the Tigers right now. Skubal, Flaherty, Reese. I mean, the pitching in Detroit seems terrific. And, Tigers, Twins, even the Royals, they're all spinning it pretty well. But catching the Tigers, they seem to have a team production that doesn't necessarily rely on the absolute big timer. Is it sustainable with Detroit in your view?
Yeah, I've been on the Tigers train probably for 2-3 years now, thinking that they were close. I didn't realize it was going to be this good all at once, or when they would get there. I think that team is probably one of the more complete teams in baseball, if not the most complete team in the division. I think there's still a little bit of a learning curve that happens when you just start winning for the first time. And AJ Hinch obviously has such high level winning that he can kind of massage that a little bit. But I wouldn't be shocked if they go through kind of a rough patch, maybe around the trade deadline or late summer. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be these three teams pitching, the Twins, the Tigers, and the Royals kind of chasing each other down the stretch.
I really appreciate you giving me time today, and I'll continue to follow your stuff on the Minnesota Twins. Great intel, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Nordo.
Yeah, thank you. That is Ted Schwerzler, and you can follow his work, MinnesotaSportsFan.com. Follow him, TL Schwerz, SCHWERZ on the X Machine. And that's where the Twins are home now this weekend against the Blue Jays. So handling the Pablo injury, getting right at the plate, and the team, everybody's still chasing the Tigers. Who are we going to be chasing tomorrow in the 157th running of the Belmont Stakes? It's at Saratoga. Dick Girardi will join me with some intel and some angles on tomorrow's horse race. That starts the 10 a.m. hour. Kevin Fallness, NHL Stanley Cup Final, Minnesota Wild conversation still to come. And Johnny K on the Howl and Game 1 of the NBA Finals. That starts the final hour. It's Nordo in for PA on the Fan.